Hello, I'm Mike, and this is Will, and we are the Tabletop Donkeys.
Hello.
Bringing you a special lockdown edition of Age of Sigmar Mortal Realms today. It is lockdown where we live, so we can't play games in person, but we've managed to play a game using webcams. So if I sound different, that's because I'm recording myself in my own home. So this is going to be issue 29 of Mortal Realms magazine. For this issue, we've got a pot of Baneblade Brown and a pot of Nuln Oil Shade Paint. Will has the models and video camera where he lives, so unfortunately I have all the magazines, so you'll have to put up with my terrible iPad quality photos for this little look through the magazine. Having a quick flick through the issue. First up we have some lore on Sigmar, who created the Stormcast Eternals, rules over the realm of Aesir, and is a sworn enemy of the Chaos Gods. Obviously it mentions the Stormcast Galmaraz, the titular Warhammer, and also Dracothian, one of his oldest allies, who supplies him with the various draconic mounts that the Stormcast use. And some lore on the Lords Celestants, who are the leaders of the Stormcast Eternals. And again, the Stardrakes and Dracos they sometimes ride. And some more of the Book of the Dead. Talks about the Death Rattle Legions, or just skeletons essentially. Various types of them, from the more generic skeletons to things like Black Knights and White Kings, who are more powerful in their mortal lives. And then we have quite a lot of painting to do with this issue. So first off we're applying Mephiston Red and Rakov Flesh, which we got recently, to our Stormcast Eternals. And there's quite a lot here. It's mostly cloth areas and things like plumes on all of them. And then shading all of those with Agrex Airshade. And then applying the Nuln Oil Shade to the Cantor Blue, Lead Belcher and Corn Red areas of the models. And also applying Reichland Flesh Shade Wash to some of the white undercoated flesh areas as well, to give a very pale skinned look to some of the Stormcast. And also applying the Nuln Oil Shade to the Nighthaunt, going over the Cantor Blue, Lead Belcher and Dryad Bark bits. Oh, and some Corn Red as well actually for the corsets that the Myrmon Banshees wear. There's also a little fold-out pamphlet that came with this issue, and on one side we have a really nice picture of Archaon the Everchosen, and it goes over some of the mortal followers of Chaos, so the slaves to Chaos and the Skaven and the various beastmen of Chaos. And then on the other side it shows the greater demons of the four major Chaos gods, Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle and Slaanesh. Having a look at some of the rules now, we have an updated datasheet for the Lord-Arcanum on Gryph-charger. New things to note is that he has the Spirit Flask ability that the Knight in Candles have, which I don't think he had before. His Gryph-charger, if he rolls a 6 to hit with its claws, it immediately causes a mortal wound and the attack sequence ends, so it's like the Tomb Banshee's dagger and the Myrmon Banshees as well of that effect. He has a new spell called Healing Light, which is a casting value of 5, and if it's successfully cast you can pick a friendly Stormcast Eternal model within 18 inches of him and heal D3 wounds that have been allocated to that model, and if you roll an 8+ on the casting roll you heal D6 wounds instead. And he can use that on himself because he is a Stormcast model within 18 inches of himself. He also has a new command ability called Soul Energy, which is a different effect depending on which phase you use it in. So in the hero phase you can pick an Evocator's unit wholly within 9 inches of him, and that unit can immediately cast in power without having to roll a casting roll, and it can't be unbound. In the shooting phase you can pick a Castigator's unit wholly within 9 inches of him, and they can use both options in their etheric channeling, so they can improve the power and accuracy of their great bows, which is pretty useless with the forces with this magazine because the extra rend from increasing power doesn't affect the Nighthaunt. And in the combat phase you can choose a Sequitor's unit wholly within 9 inches of the Lord-Arcanum, and they can use both versions of their etheric channeling, so they can put power to weapons and shields. It also gives an example tutorial here of his ability to stop people from dying, and he Ride the Wind's etheric ability, which I think he had, which effectively allows him to teleport. I'm not sure how useful that would be on the smaller boards. Maybe once we start using more boards that would be more helpful. And another updated datasheet here for the Knight of Shrouds. It's pretty much exactly the same as before. He just has a command ability now called Lord of Geist, which is used at the start of the combat phase, and it allows you to pick a friendly Nighthaunt unit within 18 inches, and it gives them an extra attack with each of their melee weapons. That's quite a nice little force multiplier. And obviously the tutorial shows you how they're used. And finally on to the mission, where Lord-Arcanum Boreas Glorymantle, who I'm sure was called Borin Glorymantle the last time we saw him, but whatever, has arrived with some forces to try and relieve the siege at Hallowstone Hold. So we're on to our battle plan, Breaking the Siege, where we have a Knight of Shrouds, a Dreadblade Harrow, 15 Chainrasps and 4 Glaive Wraiths, facing off against the Lord-Arcanum, 5 Secretors, 4 Liberators and 1 Prosecutor. Again, it's the same sort of board style we've been used to in the last few games. The Nighthaunt player has the first turn and begins setting up first, and we keep going until one side has no models left. But with that all over, we'll get into the game now.
Here is our battlefield set up once again, and you're going to have my voice for the overview of the battles, because obviously I'm the one here with the camera, so I'm going to have to do all of the moving and measuring and rolling of dice and all that kind of thing, but we're limited in what we can do, so hopefully it'll still be an enjoyable experience for you viewers. Having a look over here at the Stormcast deployment, we've got the Lord-Arcanum on this end of the line and the Prosecutor next to him, the 4 Liberators, and then the 5 Sequitors.
Right, so for my deployment, nearest the camera I have the 4 Glaive Stalkers, and next to them we have the Dreadblade Harrow and the Knight of Shrouds, and then the 15 Chain Rafts in ranks furthest away from the camera.
But the Nighthaunt get to go first, so we'll be on to the first Nighthaunt turn of the first battle round.
So first up, in the hero phase I gain a command point, and then in the movement phase the Glaive Stalkers and the Chain Rafts are both going to run. So yeah, as I said, I'm going to have to roll all of these dice, but Mike can see the dice box, so he will tell me if he wants to use a command point or anything. So I do the Chain Rafts first. They roll a 4. Yeah, I'll keep that 4. And then rolling for the Glaive Race, they also roll a 4. And I'll keep that as well. So my movement, the Chain Rafts and the Glaive Race are both just going to move up the 10 inches they can go. And the Dreadblade is going to tuck in behind the Glaive Wraiths, and the Knight of Shrouds is going to tuck in behind the Chain Rafts, but he's going to maintain the 9-inch range, his little bonus the Dreadblade gets that lets him reroll wounds, just in case that could come into effect. But that'll be the end of my movement and my turn, because I'm too far away to charge, or can't charge, or whatever. So you can see we're about that far away from the Stormcast, and we'll be on to the Stormcast turn. So in my hero phase I gain a command point, and we're going to do an Arcane Bolt. Decide the target depending on whether it goes off, so I need a 5. I got a 11. Because of his special abilities he does D3 normally, or D6 if he rolls a 10 or more, so that's actually D6 mortal wounds to the Chain Rasps. For 1. Okay, well, never mind. That destroys 1 Chain Rasp, I'll leave this one, I'll go back. And then onto my movement phase. So what's happened here is the Liberators have spread out at the front to make a kind of a screen. The Sequitors ran and they rolled a 3, didn't bother showing it on camera, so they just wanted to move across the board behind the main lines. Prosecutor flew over to the other side of the formation, and Lord-Arcanum just moved over a little bit, so we'll be on to the shooting phase. And Prosecutor is going to throw his hammers at the Chain Rasps as well. 2 shots with his hammers, hitting on 4s and re-rolling 1s. And re-roll that 1. So he got a hit, so wounds on the 4, it did not. But that's the end of my turn, and I'm not in range to declare any charges. I could technically with the Prosecutor, but I'm not going to send him in by himself, so we'll be on to the next battle round. So rolling off the new battle round, obviously I have to roll both dice, but the red one is the Nighthaunt roll. So they got a 5, so Mike gets to choose. So I think I'll go first this battle round. So in my hero phase I'll gain a command point, and then in the movement phase the Chain Rasps and the Glaive Race are going to move up normally. The Knight of Shrouds is going to follow on behind the Chain Rasps, and the Dreadblade is going to come in and tuck in between everyone else. And there's obviously no shooting, so on to the charge phase. So starting off the charge phase, the Chain Rasps are going to declare a charge. Rolling for the Chain Rasps, Mike does have a command point. Re-roll this if he wants. That's an 8 though, so that is enough. So the Chain Rasps are going to finish their charge like that, so charging at a slight angle. Hopefully I can get the Glaive Wraith Stalkers in on the end of the Liberators, and I want the 4 Chain Rasps that are furthest away from the camera to be able to pile in so they can attack the Prosecutor without pulling in the Sequitors. But the next thing that's going to happen is the Glaive Wraith Stalkers are going to declare a charge. So their charge roll, I think they possibly need an 8. They got a 9, so they're good. So the Glaive Race are going to finish their charge like you can see, so that all of them are actually in range with their weapons at this point without needing to pile in, and so they don't bring in the Lord-Arcanum. That's going to be all of my charges because the 2 heroes are far too far away and there isn't really enough room for them. So at the start of the combat phase I'm going to spend a command point to use the Knight of Shrouds Lord of Geist ability on the Chain Rasps to give them all +1 attack with each of their melee weapons. And you can do that because the unit is wholly within 18 inches of him. So the Chain Rasps are going to pile in, and I'm apparently able to get 3 Chain Rasps in range of the Prosecutor, so I'll do that. So I'll end up with 11 Chain Rasps fighting the Liberators and 3 attacking the Prosecutor. I guess we'll do all the attacks on the Liberators first. So thanks to the command ability they've got 34 attacks in total, that's 11 Chain Rasps including the Dread Warden. So I'll roll these in 2 batches of 17, and we are hitting on 4s with the first batch. Looks quite good. That was 10 hits, so I'll roll the wound rolls here as well and then do all the saves at the end. There is wounding on 4s, re-rolling 1s because there are more than 10 of them. So there's a couple of 1s there. Re-roll into wounds, so that's actually 7 wounds so far.
Next batch of 17 hits. Another 10 hits, wounding on 4s, re-rolling 1s. Well, that 1, this looks pretty good. That's 15 wounds in total, and I've got my 4+ saves, re-rolling 1s, because I do have shields. A couple of 1s. Oh, they both fail. I actually made 10 saves, so there's actually only 5 wounds going through. So the unit takes 5 damage in total, but damage is allocated 1 at a time. So we'll put 2 wounds on this model, and he's removed, and then 2 wounds on this model here, and he is then slain, but I'm going to use the Lord-Arcanum's Cycle of the Storm ability. So when he is slain, rather than removing him, he heals 1 damage instead, so takes him back up to 1 wound, but then there's still 1 damage left remaining, which will kill him. So effectively I just take 1 less damage from all of that, and I'm left with 2 Liberators. Then there are 9 attacks on the Prosecutor from 3 Chain Rasps, hitting on 4s. Well, there's only 2 hits, so that's all the 1s, 2s and 3s were. Wounding on 4s, re-rolling 1s. 1 wound in total, which I save on a 4+. I do, so no damage to the Prosecutor. I will attack with the Liberators next, on the Chain Rasps, obviously. So I have 4 attacks, hitting on 4s. 1 hit, and then wounding on a 3. That's a wound, and Chain Rasp has a 5+ save, which it failed. And that will kill off this Chain Rasp at the back, fighting the Prosecutor.
So then the Glaive Race are going to go. Unfortunately, the Liberators they were going to fight are dead now, so they're going to have to pile in a little bit. We can get 3 of them in within weapon range of the Liberators, so they can attack. And since they charge this turn, they can re-roll their hit rolls.
Yeah, so these 3 here, because they've got the 2-inch weapon range, they can reach over with the Chain Rasps. 3 are in range, they've got 2 attacks each, so we've got 6 attacks hitting on 4s but re-rolling. 2 hits so far, re-rolls. There we go, 5 hits. And wounding on 3s, so there's only 1 wound unfortunately. So then we've got a 4+ save, re-rolling 1s. Re-roll that 1 into a 6, so we're good. And finally the Prosecutor gets to attack the Chain Rasps. So he has 2 attacks hitting on 4s, re-rolling 1s. So yeah, hits on 3s. That's a 2 though, so still only 1 hit. Wounding on 3, that is a 3, so that's a wound. 5+ save on Chain Rasp. Oh, made it. So that brings us to the Battle Shock phase. The Chain Rasps only lost 1, so they're fine. The Liberators lost 2, so they wouldn't take a Battle Shock test, but I'll just spend my command point, because they are within 6 inches of the Lord-Arcanum, to automatically pass. And with that, we'll be on to the Stormcast turn. In my hero phase, I gain a command point, and we're going to try and do an Arcane Bolt, because there's no point trying to heal anybody, because all my models are on full wounds. So we're looking for a 5, getting an 8. I'm actually going to target that Arcane Bolt at the Dreadblade Harrow, because all of the Nighthaunt models are within 18 inches. So it takes D3 mortal wounds for 3. So the Dreadblade is down to 2 wounds, and then in my movement phase, the Lord-Arcanum is going to come over here, so he's more than 3 inches away from everything, but he's going to go and take on the Nighthaunt heroes. The Liberators have retreated from the Chain Rasps, so they're back here. The Prosecutor will stay in melee, and then the Secretors have moved round a bit like this, mainly to make way for the Liberators actually, and make sure they're still within 6 inches of the Lord-Arcanum. But with that we'll be on to the shooting phase. The Prosecutor has to throw his hammers at the Chain Rasps because he's engaged in melee with them. So 2 shots hitting on 4s, re-rolling 1s. Still needs that re-roll. Nope, didn't hit anything. So on to the charge phase. I'm going to start with the Secretors so that they are still within 6 inches of the Lord-Arcanum in case they roll a double 1. Rolling their charge. They did not get a double 1, so they're in. So the Secretors will charge like this, engaging both of the Nighthaunt infantry units, and hopefully remaining close enough to the Lord-Arcanum for reasons that will be apparent in a moment, but he will charge as well. His charge roll is a 3, which is the minimum. So obviously that is enough to get within half an inch of something, but I actually want him to be in a slightly different position at the start of the fight phase, so I'm now going to spend my command point to re-roll that. The re-roll is a 7, so that's fine. So that is enough movement to get him like this and this orientation, which is what I want because he is just about within 3 inches of this Glaive Race Stalker here, but not within 3 inches of the Secretors. So moving on to the fight phase, at the start of the fight phase there are 3 things that happen. 2 of them are mine and 1 of them is Michael's. So because it's my turn, all of my things happen first. So the first thing that will happen is the Lord-Arcanum will shatter all 3 of his Spirit Flasks, dealing 3 mortal wounds to himself and to all units within 3 inches of him. And the Chain Rasps, fortunately, are just outside 3 inches, so they don't get hit with 3d3 mortal wounds for having a large unit size. Obviously it will kill the Dreadblade Harrow on 2 wounds, do 3 wounds to the Knight of Shrouds, and remove 3 Glaive Race Stalkers, and the Secretors are just outside. So that leaves the Knight of Shrouds on 3 wounds, the Lord-Arcanum on 4, removing all the glaive wraiths that are not the deadbeat drummer, so that's these 3. Second thing that needs to happen is my Sequitor's etheric channeling. Unfortunately, because I use my command point, I can't use the command ability of the Lord-Arcanum to let them do both, so I'm just going to pick power to their weapons. And then finally, the Nighthaunt command ability.
Yeah, I'm going to spend my last command point to use the Lord of Geist command ability on the Chain Rasps, so they'll get an extra attack if any of them are still alive.
Then on to the fight phase proper, where I get to pick a unit first. I'm going to pick the Sequitors. I can take the risk that the Knight of Shrouds will be able to kill the Lord-Arcanum, but hopefully the Sequitors murder most of these Chain Rasps, so we're going to pick them and pile in. Piling in a little bit like that, and then we'll make some attacks. We'll start with the 2 Storm Smite Great Maces, 2 attacks each, hitting on 3s. Re-rolling. Okay, well, let's roll 2 6s, so that's D3 hits each for those. For 4 in total, so 6 total hits. Wounding on 3s, 4 wounds. 5+ saves for the Chain Rasps, 4 of them. Well, made 2, so that's 4 damage so far from the big maces. And 7 attacks from the Storm Smite Mauls, hitting on 3s, re-rolling everything. Roll that miss. 2 hits, so 7 hits. Wounding on 3s, 6. And 5+ saves, making 2, so 4 more dead Chain Rasps, so that's 8 damage in total. 8 dead Chain Rasps, and they've been taken away from the Prosecutor, leaving him unengaged, and there's 5 left over here around the Dreadwarden.
So I'll pick the Knight of Shrouds to go, because he's the only one of my units that's still under threat.
Piling in to the Lord-Arcanum like that. So he's got 4 attacks with his Sword of Stolen Hours, hitting on 3s. That's 2 2s, unfortunately. And wounding on 3s, only 1. It has a -1 rend and does 2 damage, so this will be a 4+ save for the Lord-Arcanum, which he made. Then we've got the Horse as well, so 2 attacks which hit on 4s. No, they didn't. The Prosecutor is no longer within 3 inches, so it's only the Lord-Arcanum left to fight. He has 4 attacks with his other stave, hitting on 3s. He misses twice as well, wounding on 3s. He wounds twice though. Knight of Shrouds has a 4+ save. Oh, that's a 1 and a 3. D3 damage each. 4 3, which is exactly the number of wounds he has left. Knight of Shrouds is killed.
So it's only my 2 units left to fight. I'll do the Glaive Wraith first, because he's probably not going to change how many targets the Chain Rasps have, and then I'll do the Chain Rasps.
Glaive Wraith has 2 attacks on, hitting on 4s, 1 hit. Attacking a unit that charged, so we can re-roll that miss into a hit. Wounding on 3s, 2 wounds. And then we've got 4+ saves, re-rolling 1s. And for both, re-roll that 1. Oh, into a fail. So 2 damage going through. I'll allocate both the damage to this one over here, but I'll use the Cycle of the Storm ability from the Lord-Arcanum to heal a wound when he's slain, so he's on 1 wound. Chain Rasps are hitting the same unit, so it doesn't really matter when I use the ability. And they have 16 attacks, thanks to the command ability, hitting on 4s. But I didn't roll enough dice, so having the extra 1, I missed. So that is 10 hits though. He's wound on 4s, 6 wounds. And I have 6 4+ saves, rerolling 1s. I have failed 2, so that's 2 damage. So this wounded one over here dies, and I'll put a wound on this one over here. So that'll bring us on to the Battle Shock phase. All the Stormcast units are fine, because we only lost 1 Sequitor.
Yeah, and the Chain Rasps have to make a Battle Shock test because they took 8 casualties. So on a 1 or a 2 they're fine, on a 3+ they'll lose models.
Rolling Battle Shock. Oh, they got a 1, so they're fine. So that's the end of the battle round.
So I'm just going to concede at this point, because I don't think my 6 remaining models are really going to be able to take on basically the whole Stormcast army. Plus the Lord-Arcanum's probably going to heal himself next turn anyway.
Yeah, he has that spell, so he can heal himself D3 wounds. So that will be a Stormcast victory, and we will recap this game for you now. So that was the battle for issue 29 of Mortal Realms. How did you think that went?
Well, it's not an entirely unexpected outcome. I don't think it's quite as much of a whitewash as it looked like it was. I think maybe if the Knight of Shrouds had managed to kill the Lord-Arcanum, and maybe if the Chain Rasps had killed the Liberators off early on, he might have been able to pull it around. It certainly would have been a very Pyrrhic victory for either side. And I probably shouldn't have left the Dreadblade quite so close to the Knight of Shrouds as well. But unfortunately, with the kind of distance you have to travel, I'd have to send the heroes off ahead and get them to charge together, I think, to maximise them. But I don't want to do that because you'll charge the Sequitors at them.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a difficult balance to maintain, haven't you? Because you don't want to get too far forward, because then I can charge you. But on the other hand, you don't want to stay too far back, because I've got the ranged advantage and the spells. And you don't want to give me a nice opportunity to use my Spirit Flasks either. So it's quite a difficult position as the Nighthaunt player, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably just charge the Lord-Arcanum in on his own just to blow up the chain rafts, and then whatever's left of your army, even if he then died, would probably deal with... Once you kill off all the chain rafts, that's basically the main target for Lord of Geist dealt with, and a big chunk, most of my army. And I think this is a case where these smaller games make certain abilities look really good when perhaps they're not in a full-size game. Maybe that's the case with these Spirit Flasks, especially since the Lord-Arcanum can heal himself, and he's probably the main target for it, because healing a single wound on a Liberator or a Secator or whatever doesn't really seem worth it, especially if the man himself is wounded. And you can chuck out those big arcane bolts as well. You were pretty unlucky with your big cast and only did 1 kill.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, actually, yeah, that's a good point. If I had rolled higher than a 1 for that, you would have had even fewer chain rafts left. But yeah, as you say, I think if this were on a bigger board, you'd be able to spread out more, so it wouldn't be such a danger. And you'd also have, at the moment, he can charge in and destroy most of your army and kind of eliminate your ability to get back at him. Whereas if you had a bigger army, he could still charge in and do that, but then there's much more risk of him being killed in return as well. It's a very good ability, especially when he can essentially still be almost fully combat operational, because he has 4 wounds left after he does that. I mean, especially if I get to react to your moves like I did in this game. You charged in and then I was able to send him out round the back, so it was, once you were already committed, yeah, you didn't have the ability to respond to that move very easily.
And it worked out for you that you could basically bomb the Dreadblade. I mean, you could have quite easily picked the Lord-Arcanum to go first if I'd used Lord of Geist on the Knight of Shrouds and killed the Knight of Shrouds.
And I guess once again, the Secretors show that they can dish out a huge amount of damage. It's a shame I didn't get to use my command ability to let them do power to both weapons and shields. I mean, it wasn't needed in the end, but it did mean I had to take the risk of losing the Lord-Arcanum so I could fight first with the Secretors, which, with the number of chain rafts you had left at the time, I didn't want all those attacks coming in.
Yeah, that's why I did have a bit of a decision to make. Did consider putting Lord of Geist on the Knight of Shrouds, because he can do that. He is a friendly Nighthaunt model within 18 inches of himself, and then I would have had more chance of killing the Lord-Arcanum, but I took the risk and it didn't pay off. It's really nice to have an ability that I can actually spend my command points on other than passing morale tests, and considering how a lot of these games seem to go is I need to charge you or I get obliterated, so being able to maximise my damage output from charges is pretty handy. Worked pretty well with a chain rasp. Basically any big unit obviously is going to get the most benefit, or things like the Dreadscythe Harridans. I guess even heroes themselves, just because of the damage they can do. I mean, I'm not really sure why the Glaive Wraiths are part of my army, but I think one of them got a kill. It's better than nothing at least.
Yeah, well, I mean, a unit of 4 of them is not really worth having, really, is it? I think we've seen before that the big unit of 9 of them, when they can charge and get to reroll all of their hits, kind of get a lot of attacks. And actually, if you were to use the Lord of Geists on them with their rerolling attacks, I guess that would be reasonably good. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously nice to have my own command ability as well. We didn't get to see it in this game, but it can be quite handy. It makes the Secretors even more dangerous because they can be both tanky and hitty at the same time.
Yeah, and that use of it is probably the best as well, because the version for the Cascaders is totally useless against the Nighthaunt because you don't need Rend. And letting an Evocator's unit automatically cast in power, I guess, is worth doing it. And I guess if you have enough command points, because you might be able to use the automatically use in power and use power to weapons and shields in the same turn, if you have enough command points.
Yeah, as you said, it gives us a reason to use our command points, because at the moment, with the command abilities we had before, it was rare that you'd want to do more than one of them in any given turn. A lot of the time we just accumulate these command points and, I might as well use that to pass my battle shock test because I don't have any other use for it. Whereas now there's beginning to get a little bit more of a choice of what to do with them. Well, hopefully you still enjoyed our lockdown edition battle report with probably slightly lower production quality. Hopefully it's still okay. And it also means that if Mike loses a game, he can just blame my dice rolling.
Oh yeah, I forgot to do that. I had basically no influence over this battle. It was all you. What the viewers don't know is that you just recorded the battle and then I added my things in post. That's exactly what happened.
Well, yeah, what you didn't see on camera is quite a lot of me moving models around and saying, oh, here, this way a bit, this way a bit. And in fact, if we'd been doing a much larger battle, this would have taken a very long time. So it's not perfect, but we can manage for these smaller games.
Yeah, so we can do these Mortal Realms games. Probably can't do any 40k games because trying to see line of sight and range is trying to get exact positioning and that sort of thing. Just going to be an absolute nightmare. It would take multiple days to film a game.
yeah, so hopefully that all looked fine, and we will obviously get back to filming both of us here as soon as possible, but I don't think there's too much more to say, so if you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like and subscribe. Let us know if you've been playing along with these games, how you did, your thoughts on relative strengths of Stormcast and Nighthaunt, particularly if you're more experienced at this game, whether these matchups are just basically in favour of the Stormcast or whether more to it than that. But we've been the Tabletop Donkeys, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye for now.